Well, good morning. This is the news that we are waking up to for Monday, May the 12th, 2025. Oh, I forgot to take parade day off there. We will do a parade day wrap up from Friday, but today is day 1174 of Russia's full scale invasion of Ukraine. I'm Peter Alexievich. And look, so there's no ceasefire. All right, let's just get that through our heads. The Europeans and Ukraine are pushing to say, look, we should not negotiate until the fighting stops. If you want us to believe you want peace, stop shooting at us. Then we'll sit down. And if you don't sit down, then the Europeans have said to the Russians, along with Ukraine, then we, the European community, will back Ukraine. Now, look, the Russians have said no ceasefire until we have negotiated, until we have, in the words of Maria Zakharova, uh, addressed the underlying conditions that led to the war in Ukraine. Now, of course, what this means is that Russia, the aggressor, who is responsible for this full-scale invasion, wants security guarantees from the rest of the world, which is just insanity beyond words, right? So look, there is no ceasefire here. Trump pushed for a ceasefire starting today, the 12th. But when Putin said no, we have to negotiate first, Trump then backed him up, and we will look at that in just one moment. So last night, again, no ceasefire, so the Russians are sending drones in. They sent 108 drones yesterday. 55 of them were shot down. Another 30 were taken out with active countermeasures for a 77% interception rate, right? So it's a very solid interception rate. But of course, 25% of this shit getting through causes havoc and unalives Ukrainian civilians every day. Now, during the ceasefire, during the parade on Friday, and for the next 24 hours after that, there were a number of European leaders right here while the bombs were falling from the sky. So Ukraine is supposed to respect the presence of Xi Jinping in Moscow, but the Russians don't have to respect the appearance of Starmer, Macron, and Merz making his first trip outside of Germany, his first foreign visit since officially becoming chancellor, to meet with European leadership to discuss support for Ukraine, and very much to act as a shield, which failed completely since the Russians continued their offensive actions. Now, what came out of the meeting? Well, a couple things. On the lighthearted note, the good news. These guys, along with Zelensky, were kind of out and about in Kyiv, just kind of walking around, talking to people, very low levels of security. It was impressive. It was impressive. It really was, especially Zelensky, who is so personable with the average Ukrainian on the street. So there's some good video of them walking around Kyiv. I'm sure you can find it on YouTube or whatever. A couple of critical things came out of the meeting. One, the EU is allocating nearly 1.9 billion euros. That's over $2 billion for Ukraine's defense, according to the Ukrainian Prime Minister. That 1 billion of it will be used to purchase weapons from Ukrainian manufacturers under what they call the Danish model. The Danes are financing Ukrainian weapons production and then buying the resultant weapons for the Ukrainian army. So everything is being produced here, which is a big boost to the economy, which is so fragile following this invasion, and which has had so much of its GDP stolen by the Russians. Over 600 million euros will go toward artillery and ammunition, More than 200 million will be allocated to strengthening air defense, both of which are critical to Ukraine's success. Now, the economics of keeping Ukraine as a sovereign functioning nation that can defend itself from the tyrannical aggression of the Kremlin was not the only thing that was discussed. Punishing the aggressor, which must be considered by all parties a critical outcome of this conflict. If the aggressor goes unpunished, they will not learn. We're already getting warnings from Dutch intelligence that believe that Russia could rebuild its forces in a year and be ready to go on the offensive again. This is not Putin's war. This is Russia's war. There is a culture that says that the way we get ahead in life is to predate on other nations, to see them as a resource that should be exploited for the greater good of Mother Russia. And it is just like watching the Republican Party go down the rabbit hole of MAGAism, because the very Russians who espouse this do not benefit from the system. It's the 400 richest people in Russia that benefit from this exploitive system. Just like in the United States, the policies that regular Americans who identify with the MAGA movement, those policies that they push do not benefit them in any way. They benefit the billionaire class. It is a tragic exploitation of the wealthy, of the poor, in a psychological kind of warfare that turns the poor against each other and against their own interests. So the European delegation at Kyiv wants to see a tribunal. So a meeting of the coalition states was also held to establish a special tribunal for the crime of aggression against Ukraine. Luxembourg's foreign minister expressed hope that the tribunal will be launched next week. Now, whether this means they intend to begin prosecuting Russian soldiers, commanders, and even Kremlin officials in absentia is a question. Or will they begin prosecuting the war crimes of POWs, documented war crimes of POWs? We don't know yet, but there is some movement in that direction. Now, Trump called Zelensky at some point before the parade, the Thursday night, May 8th, before the parade. And then after the call, he said this. Now, remember, Trump had been pushing for a 30-day ceasefire. Putin said no, negotiate first. Trump calls Zelensky, then he truths this out. President Putin of Russia doesn't want to have a ceasefire agreement with Ukraine, but rather wants to meet on Thursday in Turkey to negotiate a possible end to the bloodbath. Ukraine should agree to this immediately. At least they will be able to determine whether or not a deal is possible, and if it is not, European leaders in the US will know where everything stands and can proceed accordingly. I am starting to doubt that Ukraine will make a deal with Putin. Curious phrasing there. Who's too busy celebrating the victory of World War II, which could not have been won, not even close, without the United States of America. Have the meeting now. Okay. So he's not wrong about the World War II thing. It's just annoying, because he's wrong about everything else. He was pushing Putin for a ceasefire before negotiations, but when Putin wouldn't do it, he caves immediately. Just like he caved to China on the tariffs. Just like he's caved to Ukraine. We're walking away. We're not doing any more of this. But they sucked us back in. They need us. No, bullshit. Everybody would have been happier if you walked away. Believe me, we all would have been happier without your interference. But you had to have your minerals deal. You have to be ready to exploit this nation. It's obscene. And you have to be ready to take the aggressor autocrat's side. Putin doesn't want a ceasefire. He wants to meet in Turkey. Ukraine should agree to this immediately. It's obscene. It's obscene. So Putin has got his way. Again, the Europeans didn't want this. Ukraine didn't want this. They wanted a ceasefire before anybody sat down with anybody. Now, is it a bluff on Putin's part about going to Turkey? I find it hard to believe he's going to get in the air and fly anywhere. The risk of interception, not that the United States would do that these days, though we should, to serve the ICC warrant and arrest him. Leaving Russia to any place other than just a friendly like Kazakhstan or North Korea, I don't know, man. I don't know if he's going to go to Turkey. Or if he does, will he just send a double? And will Zelensky immediately recognize he's dealing with a double, having met the real Putin in his life? And will he then walk away from the meeting saying it's not Putin and tell the world this is not Putin? The coward wouldn't show up. I don't know. I don't know. Or would he be better to look the double in the eye and say, I know what you are. You don't have any authority to negotiate, right? Tell your boss this is where we're at. I don't know. We'll see what happens on Thursday. But Zelensky has said, we await a full and lasting ceasefire starting from tomorrow. He tweeted this yesterday, the Sunday, the 11th, Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. We await a full and lasting ceasefire starting from tomorrow, which there has not been. I want to point that out, to provide the necessary basis for diplomacy. There is no point in prolonging the killings, and I will be waiting for Putin and Turkey on Thursday. Personally, I hope that this time the Russians will not look for excuses. So the Russians keep bluffing. Zelensky keeps calling their bluffs. The United States keeps acting as if the bluffs are real. And the Europeans keep working quietly in the background to try to help Ukraine, is what it looks like from my perspective. Now, there's some great video that's been released here. I'll play this for you. Now, if you're a follower of this channel, we started talking back in November about how it appeared the Ukrainians were now using unmanned marine drones as not merely one-way sabotage vehicles, but rather as all-robot combined arms platforms for air defense, for drone launch pads, etc., right? And the Army has released this video of their testing of the marine drones. I believe that's a Magora V5 right there. And then this is a Magora V7, if I'm not mistaken. This is their video of them testing these drone platform solutions. And so it is remarkable to me that even as we watch Russia devolve, the Ukrainians are pushing the boundaries, the frontline boundaries of weapons and war to places we would never be without this war. I thought that this was funny. This is from Invaders Must Die. Security for the May 9th parade in Moscow was provided by special forces positioned on rooftops with SPG-9 anti-tank grenade launchers set up in such a way that if anything happened, half the parade would have been torn apart by shrapnel. It's just another example of incompetent management putting in place solutions that people can see and make them feel good maybe, as long as they don't understand what that solution is and how it doesn't address the real problems you could have anyway, right? It's all for show. Like those barges around the Kerch Bridge, for example, or that train car, that 17-kilometer train car filled with sand that's supposed to be a barrier in the Donetsk. Like what are you doing? What are you doing? Now this I thought was interesting. This is Russian propaganda film about the new housing in Mariupol and what it's really like, right? So they show the facade of this beautiful building, or at least new modern building, and they do not show you that behind it is all the devastation. Now, the reports about these buildings is that they are complete crap made out of garbage materials and are falling apart even now. But the Russians are selling them sight unseen to people in Siberia and other places at a very cheap rate and at a very low interest loan from the government that is guaranteed by the government. And so people are buying these second houses in Mariupol thinking that they're getting a beach house for the summer once the war is over. And really the ticky-tack construction is just falling apart even as we speak. Ugh. In Mariupol as well, we saw the Russians put up a statue of Stalin. Having destroyed the city for the most part, they are raising monuments to rehabilitate the image of the hated and feared monster that killed and murdered so many Russians in his time, including his entire general staff, all the generals, right before World War II. You ever think that all those Russians that died in World War II died because the actual people that knew how to do war were murdered by your fearless leader because he was afraid of them just before he needed them the most? Now, this is a video from Yamal, a province in Russia, and in it, this is from the Victory Day parade on Friday. Get this: the Kremlin finally falls. Right? Did you see it? There's a low-hanging wire there, and they built the thing just a little too tall. The star on top caught on it, and the Kremlin literally fell off the cart at the parade. And I thought that was just great. Okay, everybody, that's me. You all know. I will see everybody in tonight's live.